Fox News Alert, today's top story. This morning we are learning much more about the Islamic terrorist who opened fire on a Paris-bound train, injuring 3 people. Authorities now say the 26-year-old Moroccan national was flagged a risk in 3 separate countries because he'd been to Syria to fight with ISIS. He was able, though, to walk onto a train with an automatic weapon and open fire. What does this story tell us? Joining us now is 2016 presidential candidate, Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
So this guy was floating around Europe like tens of thousands of other people like him. Is there a lesson here about immigration policy? Europe has a lot of people like this. What should we learn from it?
I don't know so much about immigration policy is that terrorism is on the rise and that Western passport holders who go to Syria can come back to Europe and eventually the United States to attack us. So what I would do as president is I would hit them in Syria, because if this war goes on much longer in Syria, it's going to be a perfect platform to hit us here at home, that these people with Western passports can go to Europe and eventually come to America. But one thing I want to say about these guys, they represent themselves, the military in our country so well, and I hope they'll be eligible for a Purple Heart, because here's my theory, Tucker. The whole world is the battlefield, and radical Islam is everywhere. So it's not about Iraq or Afghanistan. So I hope we will recognize that the battlefield is the entire world, even on a train in France, and these guys engage the enemy. Radical Islam is the enemy of mankind, our nation, and they deserve a Purple Heart, the ones who are injured, for taking on the enemy in France.
Well, amen. Radical Islam is everywhere, of course, but it's more concentrated in certain regions of the world. Do you think it's unwise to give large numbers of people from those regions the Western passports you just referred to? Does that increase the risk to us?
Absolutely. I think we need to be a nation at war. We need to be America. Our Constitution exists in time of war, but we're fighting a war, not a crime. I've been very worried about reducing our defenses. If there's a phone call coming from overseas into the United States from a known terrorist, I want to know who's on the other end of the phone call in America, get a warrant to monitor the content. We're letting our defenses down. We're not acting like we're at war anymore. We're acting like we're trying to fight a crime. It's going to come back to bite us.
Senator Graham, I want to ask you about politics. You're running for president. Of course, you were one of the relatively few Republican candidates to flat out attack Donald Trump as he rose in prominence. And you described, you likened him to the Wizard of Oz, that there's just a tiny little man behind the curtain. Now that he's endured for a couple more weeks, is that still, you think, an apt description of him?
Yeah, I think his solution on immigration is just ridiculous. We're not going to deport 11 million people and their legal children. You cannot physically do that. You cannot legally do that. I think his plan to destroy ISIL is even worse than Obama's. Obama's plan's not working, but here's what Mr. Trump says. We should go to Iraq and Syria and take their oil, use it for our benefit. Not only will that not destroy ISIL, that will turn everybody in Iraq and Syria against us and be a great recruiting boom for ISIL. I understand people being frustrated, but we're asking to be the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief. And I don't think a plan like that is worthy of the Commander-in-Chief, quite frankly.
If his ideas are, quote, ridiculous, as you just said, then why is he so popular among Republicans?
I don't know. That's a good question. People are frustrated, but if you really think you're going to deport 11 million people, then that's not going to happen. You may want to hear that. If you think it's a good idea to go to Iraq and Syria to take their oil for our benefit and that will destroy ISIL, you're making a mistake. That will empower ISIL. It will put our soldiers at risk. So I hope over time the solutions he's offering will be judged as inadequate, that I don't think he'd be a very good commander-in-chief at all. Let's don't take one novice, Barack Obama, and replace him with another novice, because we're at war. And I'm very worried. I've got a plan to destroy ISIL, and it's not about taking the oil from Iraq and Syria. It's about going in on the ground, destroying them in Iraq and Syria.
Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, running for president. Great to see you, Senator. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.